The 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly will open on Tuesday, September 9th, with high-level week, including the general debate, running from approximately September 22nd to September 29th in New York City. How do you see that unfolding, and do you think that there will be a considerable amount of attention drawn to the UN General Meeting this time around?
Will the world's attention? Yes, for sure. Will Americans and the American media and the American government? I don't know. They barred basically the U.S. has basically said that no one with a Palestinian passport can now come into the U.S., including the UN delegation, which is totally ridiculous. But
But they're totally on the right side of history, Doc.
Right. Yeah, but we want to have a reasoned debate is what we're after. But yeah, no, it's just completely ridiculous. I testified after I briefed the Security Council back in May, I guess it was, and it was kind of interesting because I didn't tell them anything they didn't know already, obviously, but the ambassador. I think her name was Shay at the time. I can't remember who it is now. The ambassador, it's a little unusual for an American physician to testify at the UN Security Council. And I don't know, I didn't bother looking up how often when Americans are testifying at the Security Council, does the ambassador not even bother showing up? But that's pretty unusual. For wow. What was the UN ambassador doing that she couldn't spend 8 minutes listening to my testimony at the UN Security Council? So they sent this poor low-level guy who just had to read off this nonsensical statement. But the US doesn't take the UN seriously, and Israel doesn't take the UN seriously, and there's a good reason. It's because they don't have to. The US, other countries can try to isolate Israel all they want. But the problem, and this has been said by many other people, it's hardly my turn of phrase. Israel is a stationary American aircraft carrier in the Middle East.
Yes,
that's what it is. And so it's the U.S. and Israeli elite. I'm not talking about people like you and me, and I'm certainly just so no one doesn't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about Jews or something like that. I'm literally talking about the political elites of the United States and Israel not just political, but the political, economic, military are all very heavily and highly integrated. And this is the same is true of American and European elites, for example, British, German, et cetera, et cetera. So when you say that you're going to isolate Israel, that the U.S. just isn't going to let that happen. The only way and the UN is great. The UN does stuff. I totally agree with Jeffrey Sachs that the UN is actually maybe the only thing that can actually save the world from ultimate destruction. But at the same time, it's like saying, our city council is great, except for the gorilla that we gave a machine gun to and lives in the city council chambers. It's like, well, okay, should we get control of the gorilla? No, let's just have a city council session and see what happens. The gorilla is going to kill people. I can tell you what's going to happen. If we don't, we have to get control of our own country so that we're not a gorilla with a machine gun in the Security Council. We really, it's not, the US's military power is so vastly disproportionate to the rest of the world, and our willingness to use it. It's not just an idle, it's not a threat, right? We invade places all the time. Again, we are invading Gaza right now. If China provided as much military hardware to Mexico as we've given to Israel, and then Mexico invaded Texas, we wouldn't call that a Mexican invasion of Texas, right? There's no Israeli invasion of Gaza. It's a U.S.-Israeli invasion of Gaza. If we stop participating in it, it will stop happening regardless of what the UN does. So that's what has to happen. Americans, that's why people talk to me, they're like, oh, why are you so obsessed with Palestine? Why are you so pro-Palestinian? And I get where the question comes from, but again, it's like you guys have both been saying, this is the consequence of propaganda. I am not opposed to the genocide in Gaza because it's happening to Palestinians. I'm opposed to it because I'm the one doing it, and you're not supposed to do genocide, right? That's pretty straightforward. Everybody understands what a hypocrite is. That's not a complicated thing, right? It's in every religious thing and whatever. So you just don't. it has nothing to do with being pro-Palestinian. It has to do with I want to live a more virtuous life than my own government allows me to. And we have, the reason that's the case is because we just don't have a democratic country. We have democratic forms and we have democratic institutions in theory, but they don't function. And I'm guessing on a podcast called Revolutionary Change, I'm guessing the reason that you would present to your audience is because of massive economic disparities in the country. There's other stuff too. There's racism. There's all sorts of things. But the core reason that like Elon Musk can control whether or not you and I can talk right now is because of there's a massive not just income, but wealth and power disparity in this country. The top 10% of people get whatever they want. And the bottom 90% essentially get nothing. So right now, it just doesn't matter that 60 or 70 or 80% of the country is opposed to us sending weapons to Israel. It doesn't matter that half of Jews under the age of 40 think that what Israel's doing in Gaza is genocidal. It doesn't matter that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just doesn't matter because we don't have a democratic country. And unfortunately, nothing the UN can do can change that. We have to change that, We're the ones that have to, we have to look at ourselves honestly, and we have to say, look, I was born here. This is the only culture I know. English is the only language I speak with any competence. I think my country can be a better place than it is, and that's it. Yeah.
Well,
we've got problems. I mean, you're talking to, for me, I'm anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist. I believe in abolition. I believe in open borders. So I'm completely like a fish out of water with this. And I forget when it was a few years back that there was some study done where it showed that what was the percentage of people, Peter, who had their will represented in our electoral process, in our policies. It was it was 1%.
No, it's 3%. It's very small.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not a democracy, right? And I don't, before anybody gets all in there and telling me we're a republic, yes, I know we're a republic, but the premise is supposed to be democratic principles. So we have never been that in one way or another, whether it was when Black people couldn't vote, women couldn't vote. Yeah. We have never truly been a place where it's the same for everyone. So, and everyone has an equal say. And so that has never been. And I just, I am at the point where I know that we are not going to vote our way out of this. Yeah. Our system is broken in a way that it cannot be fixed. So what needs to happen is it needs to be dismantled. And that is the growing pains that we're going through right now. We're watching the end of American empire in real time. And I just saw that now we have facilitated a relationship between China and India. Well, that could be, China, India, and Russia are all having meetings and we're not invited. And these are the kinds of things that are going to implode our country. It's not going to be militarily. Nobody can beat us militarily. Right. It's going to be economically. And when BRICS and those countries have finally figured out the system to be done with us, that's it. Us and Israel are going to go away. I'm sorry, there's something flying around. Right? So we're going to be done.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, and Americans need to understand that I think we started off by mentioning that at the end of World War II, the U.S. had literally half the world's wealth, right? And again, American foreign policy was designed to maintain that disparity. Well, you can only do that for so long, unless we're just going to keep nuking the entire world, literally nuking, which means we'll kill ourselves too. You just can't maintain that disparity forever. So Americans just have to decide, do we want to let our leaders drive us off a cliff to the point that, like you said, India, Russia, Brazil, China, all these massive economies just move on without us and our whole system collapses and we all, start eating each other? Or do we just want to get control of our own society and reorganize it in a way that makes sense and we can join the world on an equal footing, just like everybody else? I would much prefer the latter option. I would much prefer if Americans got control of our own economic system, our own political system, our own social systems, and we sat down and talked to each other about how to organize them, how to deal with them. There's a good book. I think it's a British guy that wrote it, but it's about the actually it's published by Oxford Press. I don't know if it's a British guy that wrote it, but anyway, it's about it's the only academic book that I know that's actually been written on the writing and passage of the Constitution, and it's called The Founders' Coup. It's really, really interesting because and I don't know much about that. I don't know, I didn't know like the details of that history before I read this book. And what it turns out is that the Constitution was basically just passed for very plain, uninspiring political reasons of the day. And the political thing of the day was basically that war bond speculators had bought a whole bunch of war bonds from people who had fought in the Revolutionary War. And these bonds said that the US government owes you, I don't know, I'm just making it up, but like 5 pieces of silver or whatever. And these veterans kept going in and saying, give me my 5 pieces of silver. I need to pay for my farm stuff. And they would say, go to hell, get off my lawn. And so after a while, speculators bought up all these bonds for much less than they were actually worth. And then the speculators, who were wealthy people, took them to the government and said, give us all the silver that these entitle us to. And of course, the farmers who were, the people who had fought in the war, the farmers, the city dwellers, whoever they might have been, were adamantly opposed to this. They said, no, you didn't give it to me when I asked for it. Why would you give it to this speculative jackass who just gave me, like enough money to buy like a cow? Why are you giving it to him? That's completely inappropriate. That's just obviously inappropriate. Well, so the states started, these states were radically democratic places, like not for women, not for slaves, obviously, but for men. And like in Massachusetts, there were property requirements, but they weren't enforced at all. So like literally 100% of men in Massachusetts, 100% of white men in Massachusetts could vote. And they just said, no, well, but again, it's the time, right? Obviously. So they just said, no, we're not doing this. Instead, we're just going to issue paper money and all these speculators can go to hell. The state will pay them in paper money. The paper money won't be worth anything. And we'll just, okay, fine. So a large part of the reason the Constitution was passed and why it gives the federal government primacy over the printing of money, over other such things, is just so that these speculators could get their silver from the US government. It's a crazed story. Like, it's completely ridiculous. But the point is, the Constitution of the United States largely exists to undercut the radical democracy that existed in the time of the states. So that's the system that we live in right now. It's a system that is meant to undercut popular democracy. It's a system that's meant to undercut and to stop from happening what most people feel is right.